there creators, Niamh here, and I have another sewing video, and I wasn't planning on having another sewing video this soon, but I got an order from a customer for some special baby books, some cloth baby books, something that I've made in the past. She found some of my pictures on Pinterest, and I will share some of those in a second. So she ordered 3 books, and I've just cut out all the fabric for 2 of them, and the third one she's actually getting a used book, one that I've already made, and this was something my kids played with when they were little, so I am selling her a gently used book, and so she got a reduced price for that. And so these baby books are actually they're kind of pagan themed, and if you're kind of new to this channel, I don't talk about that stuff a lot on here, but I also don't hide it. So yeah, I am pagan, and so we have, so this was a baby chakras book, and it was just a fun thing where these are Velcro, and each page says you know, the root chakra, the actual name of it, and the color, and then we had these little matching things that Velcro to here. Yeah, so this is the book. Very nice. My kids enjoyed this book, and it's actually in very, very good condition, though there are some, you know, there's a few lint things. Some of the Velcro, especially the hook side, has some lint stuck in, so I'm going to try to get all of that out. I'm going to iron these, the strings here, and before I do anything, I'm actually going to run this book through the wash, though, just to really clean it up, because there are some very small little stains here, just from use over years, but it's in very good quality. So there we go. So this book will be a baby book of shadows, and I will share some of the pictures of the previous book that I made on that now. Alright, so what I have for this, I don't have that gold fabric anymore, but I do have brown, and I'm going to use kind of a light tan bias tape around it, along with some like goldish thread and blue. And so on the first page, this will actually be attached to this side right here, so that this will be the first page. Obviously I still need to iron this. The pentacle will be over here. I think the wheel of the year will be right here. Then on the next page we'll have the goddess and god, and on the final page it'll have the Triskel and the Thor's hammer, or the other way around. And there we go, and then that will be that book. So the other book we have here will be the Baby Sabbats book, and this will have a Velcro flap over like that. So I will share some pictures of the book, the previous book that I made for that. This actually is, I think, the same fabric, so I do still have the same fabric, and it's gonna have the pink bias tape around it, and it will be Velcroed shut this way. And the first page, the list of the first 4 Sabbats will be right here, and this will be Yule, Imbolc, Ostara, Beltana, Midsummer or Litha, Lunasa or Lamas, Mabon, and Samhain, and then the list of the last 4 Sabbats will be right there. So that'll be that book. So instead of going through and showing all the embroideries and things like that, because I'm sure if you've seen any of my previous sewing videos that involved embroideries, it's the same process. And I'll leave some card pop-ups to some of my previous videos, especially the ones with embroideries, so you can see how that process goes. All right, so I'm going to get those embroideries done, and then we will move on to the next step. Okay, so I have all of the embroideries for the Baby Sabbats book done. There's still that the overlay silky fabric over the top, so I'll just run this under water to get rid of all of that because it's water soluble, so that stuff goes away. If you've seen previous videos where I've done embroideries, the top, that water-soluble stuff that I put on the top, it really just allows for a flat surface to embroider on, especially for stuff that's fuzzy. I put it over everything just because it really makes the surface flat so the needle doesn't stick to the fabric or anything. But when it's done, it leaves behind this, this stuff. And it does come right off, but the stuff that doesn't come off, you just run it through water and then it'll come off. So, yeah, so that's what that is right now. So I've done that, and each of these have embroideries for each sabbat. So it has the first 4 here. It's got the Yule. It's got Imbolca Nostara, very pretty. Beltana, Litha, Lunasa and Mabon, and Samhain, and then the last 4 there. So everything looks good with this one. So I'm now going to start working on the embroideries for the next one. And this one is actually going to be a bit different because the other book, the Baby Book of Shadows, is actually a touch and feel book. So what I've done here is I've cut out small strips right here, basically about a 4 by 4 square for each thing. And each one is a different fabric, so it's got a different texture to it. On this first page is kind of a velour fabric, so it's going to be almost velvety, which is different than here, but it's like a different kind of velour, so it's very soft. On this page I have a terry fabric, like a terry cloth. On this page here, is going to be this is like a linen fabric, so it's got a very different texture. This is suede cloth, and it's got an interesting texture as well. And on the last ones, I have the same fabric from the cover right here, so that velvet, crushed velvet sort of feel. And then on this last one is a very smooth one. This is some of the whatchamacallit. It's the polyurethane laminate, so it's kind of got a very smooth texture there. So before I get started on that and show you how to do appliques on this, one thing I wanted to point out is that I actually made a mistake with the cover, and as you can see, the embroidery is way off to the side here when it should have been more this way, right? And I am actually going to be losing a lot of the material from these, because as you can tell with my previous book, this is about an inch too high there, an inch too small there, and it's an inch around basically. So about an inch of it will be lost. I expect that these newer books will be slightly larger than this, so I was trying to account for that when I put this in here, and I got it way too close to this edge. So what I'm going to do, sure, I mean, when I pulled it out, I was like, oh geez, I really put this way too far this way. I didn't freak out or anything, and that's when you make a mistake, it really doesn't help to freak out, you know. It's like, oh, shoot, I made a mistake. But the way to fix that, you just have to, you know, take a deep breath and say, all right, what do I do to fix this? And so what I'm going to do is I have this fabric here. It's kind of a smaller version of this. I'll probably cut it down just a little bit. And it is actually one of the same fabrics that I've used that's in here. So I'm going to cut this out, a square out of this, cut this out of this material. I'm going to sew it onto here and make it look nice and neat looking. And then I'm going to sew this over the area that I had the issue there. And some of this will be cut off, so I'll pull this one over more so it's more centered. But, and also it kind of works out because it adds kind of an interesting addition to this. So it does, you know, sometimes the mistakes turn out to be better and it kind of makes the product look even better. So, yeah, so I'm going to fix this, cut this out, stitch it onto here, make it look really nice, so it's nice in the center. And then sew this over top of that so we fix the problem. So everything is solved, right? All right, so let's get started. Before I'm gonna do this last, and we're gonna start working on the appliques, and I will show you how to do that.
Okay, so for an applique, you have to first hoop the fabric, the bottom fabric in, and then lay over the applique fabric on top of that, along with the sulky fabric on top of that, so everything stays put. And then I stitch a line around it, a fixed line, so that everything stays together. And now, so I'll be doing the circle of the pentacle first. This is not an actual applique, so I do have to manually stop it. And then once the circle is done, I can pull it out and start cutting around the fabric.
So I turn it over and I'm cutting the back of this, cutting off every couple of stitches here. Right. So on this side, pull it up. I'm getting rid of the fixed portion of this. So at this point, there's a little bit of a delicateness because I'm not pulling off the sulky fabric. I want to keep that on there yeah. So I'm cutting as close to this as I can.
So after I've cut as close as I can, that is when the applique finishes its embroidery. So now it's embroidering on top as if nothing happened, and it goes all the way around, and there we go. And that is the design. And then when it's done with the circle, I change the thread color, and it does the word underneath, and so it just says pentacle. All right. So all of the other designs, the appliques, go just like this. There's an initial outline. So right here it's doing the goddess one. It's an initial outline, and then I stop it and cut as close to it as I can, and there you go. And now what I'm doing is I'm stitching together, pinning together the pages, the front and back pages. If it's a front and back, then I pin them together, wrong sides together, and then I'm sewing around 3 out of the 4 edges, and the 4th edge is where I sew it together. So it'll go like that, you know. There we go, doing this one too. And now I'm stitching around the edges. So I do apologize for not having this video out last week. I meant to have this out on last Friday, and here I've just finished. Now I'm trimming off the edges. But I actually got the flu, like full-on flu. I had to go to urgent care. I got really, really sick, and I'm still recovering from that. And it wasn't like last month when I had a series of illnesses. Those were just colds, and they were frustrating too. But this time, I full-on got the flu, and it was just not. Ugh. Anyway, so here I'm trimming out the that front cover. I'm doing a square all the way around, and then I'm doing a little snip right there so that I can get on the inside, and cutting that around. And yeah, and I'm getting it very close to it, but still giving it plenty of room, and sewing it down excuse me, there on the design there. So now I'm pinning it down to the edge of the book. I decided to put it all the way on the edge, so I just went ahead and cut off that excess fabric there, and I put it all the way to the edge. Yeah, and now I'm pinning the front and back cover here, and what I'm doing here is I'm folding over the edge of one side so that it gives it a nice clean edge down down the seam. And there we go. So the next step is to sew the bias tape all the way around. Yeah, so I went with the tan bias tape here because I thought it matched really well with the brown, gold, and blue colors that I've going for with this book. So yeah, so after I get that all the way around, I then do a zigzag stitch to further secure it down and make it look nice and neat. And now what I'm doing here is I'm sewing down the two middle pages down right in the middle where I'd sewn the other part there. And I also do a little zigzag stitch there, and this is the same way that I close up the other book, the Book of Shadows book. So here we are at the end here, and this turned out very lovely, and I'll have some pictures here at the end. So yeah, and I do again apologize for not having this video out last week, and I will send these books out to my customer. Thanks for watching, guys. Later, creators. Bye!